So, for the viewers who may not recognize you, could you let them know who you are, where you're from, and definitely what do you do?
Okay. I'm Howard Gardner. I'm speaking from Cambridge, Massachusetts, near Boston. Um, a interesting biographical fact is that I'm 81 years old and I was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and that gives me two features in common with President Biden because he's also 81 and also comes from Scranton. We don't know each other, and I have no particular license for him one way or the other, but it's a way of slotting me. Um, I moved from Pennsylvania to Boston 64 years ago to attend university, Harvard University College, and I've been at Harvard ever since. Uh, so I'm a lifer. Um, Harvard is, I always say, may not be the best school in the United States, but it's the best one in the world because everybody's heard of Harvard. Uh, Recently, a lot of things have come out about Harvard which don't improve its reputation, but I'm way below that zone. Uh, I was a student, then a doctoral student, then a researcher, then a teacher, and now while I've retired from teaching, which is appropriate at my age, I still conduct research at a place called Project Zero, where I've been for 57 years. Project Zero develops ideas in education and tries to give them a push in the right direction. We don't run schools or universities or camps, but we hope that people will find our ideas useful um, and will put them to work. And if anybody wants to know more about Project Zero, you should just go to Google or some other uh, web uh, and just say PZ or Project Zero at Harvard, and you'll find out as much as you want to know. So, does that give you a sense of who I am and what I'm about?
Yes, indeed. That's very inspiring. I mean, like you say, you in the 80s and you still going, you still making history, you still planting some mighty seeds. And also as well, Harvard is the most, world renowned place of education, so that says a lot. And I really appreciate everything that you're doing. Now I have to ask you this. When did you develop this passion for psychology and education? Is this something you wanted to do since you were a child? Or did you kind of get into it later in life?
Well, I'm glad that you're asking that question because it actually helps me think about my life in a different way. Um, as I said, I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania. My parents did not have a higher education, but I liked school, and I thought that I would become a teacher anywhere from kindergarten, preschool, all the way through high school. I didn't even know there was such a thing as college or university because I was a kid growing up in a town where most people didn't go to higher education. Um, but I had an uncle who was more scholarly than my parents. And when I was 16 years old, so when I was a teenager, he gave me a textbook in psychology. I don't think I'd ever heard the word psychology. And I leaped through the textbook and I discovered something which was very important for me. I'm colorblind. That means I can't see colors. Um, and as I was leafing through the textbook, I noticed that there was a plate on the Ishihara test. The Ishihara is a test which eye doctors give you or doctors give you to see whether you can see colors. And if you and your audience can see colors, you can say, oh, that's 23 or that's 49 or it's 24. But all I see is a bunch of dots because I can't see that the numbers are in a different color than the rest of the background. So I said, my goodness, there's a field of study. It's called psychology, and it might actually help me understand my mind and the mind of other people. So I would say that by the time I finished secondary school, high school, I already had education and mind on my radar screen. But in truth, when I went to college, I thought I would study history because that was a field that I learned about and was interested in. But then there was a new field called social relations. The name is meaningless, but it was a mixture of all the social sciences. That is psychology, sociology, anthropology, with a bit of economics thrown in, a bit of political science. And I said, this is what I'm really interested in. I want to understand the world of people, but I want to understand the world of people as we live in the world. And it matters whether you live in Madagascar or whether you live in Kenya or whether you live in South Africa or whether you live in France or whether you live in China, Japan, Korea, Syria, you name it. So I really am a product not of education or psychology specifically, but of an interest in the broader social sciences. But right after I finished university, this is 1965, so it's basically 60 years ago. Um, I got a summer job working with a psychologist who was developing curricula for students in middle school. Those are students in fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, so 9, 10, 11 years of age. And that curriculum, which was a study of human nature, what makes human beings human, how do they become that way, how do we become that way, and importantly, how can we become more human? And by more human, I mean the good aspects of human, lots of aspects of human beings that aren't so good. And even though working on this project in 1965, 60 years ago, sort of went into the background for a while because when you do your doctoral work, you have to focus quite specifically on things. Um, it's remained in my consciousness. And now, as I think about the 21st century and the many ways in which education will change, the very fact that you and I can be on different continents with an ocean between us on a Monday, it's a little bit earlier for me than it is for you, and can have a conversation. And if there was a smart machine recording this conversation, it could probably predict your next question and my answer as well as we could. Education can't be the same way it was in Scranton, Pennsylvania in 1950. So I always have a foot in knowledge and history and scholarship, but I'm also trying to keep awake about what's going on in the world.